Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for today's expert webinar titled All About RedHat OpenShift Container Platform. I'm Satyakshi from Spring People. We are India's largest enterprise training provider, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So, in today's session, we have Mr. Mayank, who comes with 10 plus years of extensive experience on multiple cloud technologies. He's expert in cloud fundamentals, AWS, cloud security, DevOps tools, Red Hat, Dockers, etc. He also presented many technical sessions on cloud, virtualization, data center migration tools, and Linux, to name a few. Talking about this webinar, we will discuss about OpenShift Container Platform. Our expert Mayank will provide us with an in-depth explanation of what containerization is, how it is helpful in production and other areas. This webinar will also cover how to build an application from scratch and customize it. So, without further ado, let's invite our DevOps king, Mayank, to start the session. Over to you, Mayank.
Thank you, Satyakshi. Thank you for that. Hi, guys. Very good afternoon to each and every one. I hope you are doing great. Just confirm me, am I audible to you?
Yes,
Just let
Mayank,
me
you are
know.
audible.
Okay, that's great. So today, as Satyakshi told you that my name is Mayank Modi, and I have experience of in delivering domain like OpenShift, Docker, Kubernetes, and everything. But today, we are only going to focus on OpenShift Container Platform. So this platform is having like multiple things in between, but before that, we'll try to start from the very basic things, and then definitely we'll try to move towards the OpenShift practical part as well. So in this webinar, we are going to see the theory as well, plus practical also. So for practical part, I have an OpenShift cluster already created with me so that it will be easy for us to understand the practical way as well of using the OpenShift part. Okay, so I hope this screen is also visible to everyone. That is all about Red Hat OpenShift Container Platform. Definitely, that's by me itself, right? Now, we'll try to move one by one that what is the agenda for this particular webinar and how it is going to go for next 50 minutes, right? So first of all, what we are going to understand is in this webinar is what containerization is. So definitely, maybe you already have heard of containerization, but what actually it is, we are going to see it today. Because for OpenShift learning, you have to definitely know about what OpenShift is. But before that, how OpenShift came into the picture. So for that, we need to have a knowledge on containerization. And definitely, if you are learning any technology right now in the world, you should know that how it is going to help us in the production environment. Because why we are learning these new technologies so that we can use it in our environment to make life easy. And definitely, OpenShift is making it pretty easy for us. And after that, I will definitely show you how the dashboard, like kind of a console of the OpenShift looks like. And there are some practicals that I have thought of to show you today. So that also we are going to see. Now, if you go to the practical part that what are the things I'm going to show you, then definitely there is one thing that I will show you that is called authentication. Like you know that, for example, when you log in into your Facebook account, you just to give your username and password into it, right? The same way in OpenShift, if you want to access, you should have a correct username and you should definitely have the correct password of it. So how we can actually create the users and password, that authentication we are actually going to see. And after logging into it, what are the things are visible to us? There are multiple things like you can create your own web server, you can run your application, whatever you need, you can easily do it to deploy your major application. Either it is the microservice or monolithic. Everything can be run on OpenShift. After that, after deploying your application, okay, let's try to take one example that you guys are waiting for an application to come up in the lifetime. For example, facebook.com. So let's say the Facebook team is developing the code of the website, but they haven't launched it yet. What that means is you cannot access the website until they will make the accessible to you guys, right? Same thing happened in OpenShift as well, that you can definitely deploy your application, but the problem is until you will not expose it to the outside world, we are unable to access that particular website. So we are going to deploy the application, but we are going to expose also my application for so that everybody in this meeting can actually check it out. So whenever I'll show you that practical, I will try to show you one URL so that everybody can do the same, can access the same website, right? And definitely these are the things that are agenda for this particular webinar that is related to OpenShift itself. Now, what OpenShift is and how it came to the picture, right? But majorly, who created OpenShift, right? So basically, definitely everybody heard about, like mostly heard about Red Hat company. It's an open source solution technology company that is founded in 1993 by Bob Young after a merger with Mark Ewing's company, Red Hat Linux, right? And definitely you can see some details about the companies like Red Hat headquarter is in INC, started with definitely only Red Hat Linux, but after some time they start developing multiple things, multiple tools for helping us in a very good way. For example, suppose if I'm not talking about the OpenShift part that is helping us to create our web servers, I'll try to take one another example of automation. So nowadays, wherever you guys are working, whatever you are doing, the automation is very necessary for us, right? And definitely Red Hat created in 2012 or 11 one tool for automation, that is Ansible. So basically, it is an open source solution provider. You can see there is a Red Hat, and Red Hat actually created OpenShift. So Red Hat sells subscriptions for support, training, integration services, and all the products that they have. And definitely the second largest corporate contributor to Kubernetes after Google. Definitely Google is the first one because Google created the Kubernetes as a project. But after that, second largest contributor is Red Hat itself. And the major product of the Red Hat is RHEL. Basically, there is an operating system that means I'm using it daily. So maybe definitely in the production environment also everybody uses. Not only Red Hat, like there are multiple flavors of Linux, but everything is being used. And then definitely OpenShift Container Platform. These are the revenues that are for the Red Hat in $500 million at beginning of 2008, $1.13 billion in 2012, and definitely $3.4 billion in 2018. So for this particular webinar, there are some prerequisites. So definitely later time, whenever you get the time after this webinar, whenever you have the time, you can just go and click on these links to get some prerequisite before this, right? It is very basic. I'll try to cover it for 5 minutes. That is completely fine, right? Now, let's try to discuss what is actually the OpenShift. So OpenShift is kind of a platform that can easily help you to deploy your application, right? So let's say, for example, suppose you don't know about anything, okay? And now you want to create a website for you. For example, my name is Mayank, so I want to create a mayankmodi.in. I can create it easily. First of all, I will need to buy the domain name. It's pretty easy, right? Domain name buying. But the major thing that my code of my website, that where I'll try to put my code of my website. So previously what happened is there are multiple big servers, physical servers, where I need to configure the operating system, then any kind of server, and on top of that, you will put your code. And after doing that, you can easily start the server, whatever you are using, and then your website got created. But for that purpose, you need to understand a lot of things. So for that purpose, I will try to show you one thing right here, that I will try to open a whiteboard to demonstrate you that what I'm talking about, so that it will be easy for everyone to understand that thing. So I'll try to show you what happens earlier. Like suppose if you take an example of 1995, right? If you take an example of 1995, there should be a web server, there should be a server, physical server. Now, inside this server, inside this physical server, if you want to run your Apache server, and what is Apache server? It will help you to get your website running. So in order to install this, in order to configure this Apache, very first thing that you should have is operating system installed in this physical server. So I'll write this name as a physical server. Just I have gone to the market, bought it in 1995. In order to configure Apache, I have to install an operating system. After installing it, I definitely have to configure Apache server. And in this, if you want to configure all these things, approximately it will take 40 minutes to 1 hour for just configuring one website for you, just configuring one website only. 40 minutes to 1 hour. Now you may be thinking that why this much of time I need to give? Because the problem here is operating system. Without operating system, you can't do anything. You, like for example, if you play game as well, the game is installed on a platform. That platform is operating system. Maybe it can be Red Hat, it can be Windows, it can be any other flavor. But operating system is mandatory. After that, you can install any software that you want. And that is the reason it is taking 40 minutes to 1 hour. Because when you install operating system, by default, if you have ever seen, for example, this is my Windows machine, right? And if I just press Windows button, you can see there are multiple softwares already installed. And there are so much software comes automatically when you just try to install an operating system. It will come automatically. You do not have to do anything. It's automatic. But let me know, like just one thing, that if you need Apache server should be running, you don't want any kind of web software called calculator, calendar, camera, clock, nothing you need. Then why we are wasting our time to do these things, to install all these complete operating systems? We do not have to waste, right? And that's why after some years, a new technology came into the market. You can say in 2000, a new technology came into the market, and that technology is virtualization. I'm not talking about the containerization right now. Virtualization came into the picture. What this help us? In a single machine, we can install multiple times different operating system, and that is basically called virtual machines. That is basically called virtual machines. Now, in just one single laptop or one single hardware, you can have multiple operating system. Now, you may be thinking that if we are having multiple operating system, multiple virtual machines, we can have multiple websites running into one single laptop. Because in the single laptop, on top of your main operating system, you can install many. But the problem again same, because when you create a VM, it is going to use ISO file. And what is ISO file? ISO file can help you to definitely install an operating system. And you already know that OpenShift will take again 40 to 1 hour, 40 minutes to 1 hour. But why we are using this technology? To save our time, because time is very precious. There is nothing precious than time. So time is the major thing right here. It is not solving our problem, right? Why? Again, when you use OS installation, they will install multiple other software that is actually not needed later. And that is the reason in 2013, a new technology came up. That technology actually called containerization. Because containerization will allow us to install very lightweight OS. It is not basically called OS, but I'm just referring that name so that you guys can understand. It is very lightweight operating system. So instead of using ISO file to install operating system, here in the containerization, we need to use image file. Instead of ISO, we need to use image file. It is going to have very lightweight. where we are consuming our 40 minutes to install one operating system because of unneeded software as well. Here they will provide you a file where no software installed, very minimal, very minimal. So now if you try to think that 40 minutes, and when you create a container in virtualization, we are calling as this VMs, right? Virtual machines. Here in the containerization technology, we are calling them as containers. And containers are very lightweight, where OS can be of 4 GB size, image file can be of 100 MB also, 200 MB also, 300, 400, any number, but as less as can they. So it will take hardly less than 2 seconds. Only seconds I'm talking about, not minute, not hour, nothing. Less than 2 seconds to come up with a completely new container. And what is container? Container is a very lightweight operating system. And in this particular container, your application may run. Application like maybe it is related to Python, Ruby, any language, C, C++, any language that you know, you want to create a website using that, you just can create one application inside into a container. And how the container comes? Using Docker image. So where we are on what is OpenShift, right? So OpenShift is a platform that it will help us to deploy the containers on top of them. That is what OpenShift is. So using OpenShift, we can easily deploy the application that I want. So now this is the basics of container, but now I will try to talk about how the OpenShift looks like. I'll try to talk about now how the OpenShift looks like. So here you can see this is what OpenShift is, and this is the history like it came into 2011, right? And then 12 they upgraded, and you can see the versions also came. OpenShift 3.0 came in 2015, in 17 3.4, in 19 4.0, right? And now definitely Red Hat is a very progressive company. They actually daily they will try to update something. So maybe in future first quarter of 2023, maybe you will see the OpenShift 5, because every day they're doing that, right? So this is what the history of the OpenShift, that it came like this. Now, if you talk about only OpenShift 4 that we are going to use today, there's May 5, 2020 full support 4.4 version. From that time, it is running till now. So maybe we have 4.10, 4.11 as well, but here it is 4.4 that full support is available till now. But now you may think that as an OpenShift, we have Kubernetes also for the same purpose that you are using OpenShift. Definitely, I'll agree with that. But Kubernetes is just a project that is created actually by Google, and it have less capability to maintain, to manage, to provide multiple other features in comparison of OpenShift. Because OpenShift is not a project. OpenShift is actually a product, and you might know the difference between a product and a project. Product we can actually sell. There is subscription we need to buy for using OpenShift. But Kubernetes is just a project. Anybody in the world can use it free, completely for free, right? It is completely free. This is what, that is the major difference between like it's a project, it's a product. Definitely OpenShift have more features into it, right? Okay. So now I'll show you one more thing. Just a second. Yeah. I will try to make it bigger once so that you can see it. I'll try to demonstrate you now this particular exact architecture, how it is actually working, right? So in OpenShift, definitely you should have, first of all, operating system with you, right? That is Red Hat Enterprise Linux Core Operating System. So definitely, if you know about any machine, there are multiple types of Linux flavor. But when you create a cluster of OpenShift 4, you should have one operating system with you that is called Core OS, containerized, optimized, container optimized operating system. And OpenShift is working on top of Kubernetes. So basically, what they did in the background is They installed Kubernetes cluster, and on top of that, they will add some more features into it, right? So you can see on top of this operating system, we have Kubernetes installed. And on top of that, they are applying multiple options. So whenever you are going to use a containers, you can use Cryo tool, Podman tool, Builda, Scopio, any tool that you can use it easily. But after Kubernetes on top of that, they will try to deploy by themselves Prometheus, Grafana. So basically this is a monitoring part. So OpenShift gives you monitoring by default. It will give you multiple cluster services, monitoring, registry, logging. Now you may be thinking, what is registry? So basically, whenever if I ask you like how can you download the ISO file for installation of an operating system? Definitely you can go to any website, download it. Maybe you can buy from Microsoft or anywhere else. Same way, we should have image file also for creating containers, and that images we can find out in registry. And in the market, there are free registry also, paid registry also. And one of the great example is called Docker Hub. From this particular Docker Hub, we can find any image related to our application. It will help us to inbuild tools that can help me to build my application. It is going to help me in CI/CD as well. That is called continuous integration, continuous deployment. Inbuilt only, nothing additionally you need to add. It's completely inbuilt. And on top of that, you can deploy any type of application. Maybe it is Node.js, PHP, Python, Ruby, anything. It can easily help us to deploy the application. So we should have a cluster ready with us. What is the meaning of cluster? See, the thing is we can't use, okay, allow me a minute to go down. Yeah, here it is. So in OpenShift, we cannot install in just one single machine, right? Because if you try to think in a production way, if everything running in just one single machine, and if that goes down, there is a problem, downtime, right? If one machine is running, and if that machine goes down by any other reason, it is going to get downtime, and we don't want that. So that is why we have to create a cluster. Cluster means more than one machine together working, like simple way. More than, if you have more than one machine and they are working together for just one single thing, that is called cluster. So whatever the lab I'm going to show you, there is 5 total machines. So they are going to have total 5 machines in my cluster. 3 machines are my master machines and 2 remaining machines are my worker machines. Now you may be thinking, what is master and worker? So whenever as a user, if I have the accessibility of my cluster and I want to deploy something, so my request will go to the component of OpenShift, and that are running on my only in the master machine. And all the containers that are going to be deployed, in worker machines, worker 1 either or worker 2. So these 5 machines are working together. So that's why I'm able to access my cluster. Now I will try to show you 2 things. That if my cluster is ready, up and ready, how can I access that? So definitely for accessing part, we have 2 ways. One way is dashboard, or you can say console, right? Or the second way is CLI, that is command line interface. Basically in Linux, we use CLI option. So I will try to show you by logging method of dashboard as well, CLI also. But again, there is one more thing you need to know. If you are logging with CLI, then you have to use API URL of the cluster. If you are using logging by dashboard, you should be having console URL. So these both are different URLs. If you are accessing by CLI, you have to use API URL. If you are accessing using a dashboard, you have to get console URL. And definitely one major thing, that you should have user and password with you. Otherwise, it's pretty obvious that we can't access it, correct? So in order to access the cluster, we have 2 ways, CLI and dashboard. If you are accessing by CLI, you need user password API URL. If you are accessing using dashboard, console URL, user password you need. Correct? So now I will try to show you one practical where I'm going to log in into my cluster. I'm going to show you multiple Docker images. This particular Docker image I will try to deploy in my cluster, and then I will try to expose it so that everybody in this training can access that URL, right? So let's try to do that in the practical part right now. So I will try to show you my screen where my console URL is running. Like this is my console URL, and right now I'm able to log in already, but I'll try to do one thing. I'll log out from this. I will log out. So I'll click on here, log out. I'll refresh my page, and it may take some time to refresh it because it is running on multiple machines. In the meantime, it is running. This is my Linux machine basically. And from the Linux machine, if you want to access the OpenShift cluster, you need to use OC login command. Simple. That I have a user called kubeadmin, and my API URL is something like this. I'll share. My API URL is testlab dot something. So it is going to load, and after that it will tell me the exact. So maybe I think it is mayankmodi.xyz6443. It is asking me for the password also. Now I don't remember the password, but I know that where it is stored. So I'll just copy paste it actually, right? So I'll do this. In OpenShift, there is a test folder. In test folder, there is an auth folder, and there is cube admin password. So this is my password for logging into in. So this is the very basic command that I can use in order to log in into my OpenShift cluster with the user and the password and API URL. OC login, username, password, and the API. You hit enter. As soon as you hit enter, you will see that I got a message called login successful. If I go to my browser, you can see here in the browser, I'm logged in successfully. This is my cluster API address. In my total cluster, this much of CPU I am using 40, 160 GB RAM, 200 GB storage I'm using in my complete cluster. You may be thinking that how many machines I'm using for my cluster. So for that, you can use OC get nodes command, because this particular command is going to tell you that how many total machines are working for you in a cluster, right? So this is what it is, OC get nodes, this is the one. Now, if you run OC get all, like all the resources that I have in my machine, there are only two by default created. I haven't created them. Now, the major thing that you need to understand here, the same way that we can do anything in the CLI, we can do from the dashboard as well. So let's try to do one thing that I will try to show you how to create one application and expose it. And after that, we'll do the same thing using the dashboard as well, right? So I will go here. I want to create one deployment. So I will try to create OC create deployment with the name of, for example, Spring People. But here I'm going to use a image. Image, which image? Image file, if you remember, Docker image. And that Docker image registry is maybe quay.io slash mayank123modi slash my server. So this is particularly one image file where I have kept my code itself. Now, try to compare this thing in a way that previously in like 10 days, 10 years ago, maybe if you think of to create a server or website basically that everybody can access, it may take up to 1 day as well, because you need to buy the domain, you need to buy the hosting as well, then only you can do that. But now I'm not creating any web, I'm not buying any domain, I'm not buying any hosting or something, right? I'm just deploying my application, and just few seconds my website got created. Right now it is not created, but I'm just creating it. OC create deployment, Spring People, and the image name. As soon as I do that, in the background, they will create multiple things. So you can see right now, they created a deployment. That deployment created a replica set, and this replica set created a pod. And now this pod is in container creating state, but now this pod came into running stage. But the problem right here is the application that I have deployed in Kubernetes cluster, I'm not able to access it, right? That is the problem right now. Means you guys are not able to access. I am also not able to access that what is the code into this particular image I have kept. For that, what I need to do, I need to expose it. Simply OC expose. I want to expose a deployment with the name of Spring People and definitely my port number that is running on 80. So a service got created. You can see a service got created. But actually, here in the service also, I haven't got any URL, right? And that URL will only come from a different resource. And for getting that different resource, you again have to expose your service, Spring People. If you do that, you can check that you got a URL. And when you copy this URL into the browser somewhere, you will see in just less than 10 seconds, my application is running like this. Welcome to MD Hack, my website of testing. This is just an output. You will definitely enjoy this training. I can take one more example for the same application, but this time I will try to show you that how can I deploy the application using the dashboard. So this is my workload where I can create a deployment, right? There are multiple deployments are running, but I have a project called default. There actually I want to deploy something. So one deployment is already there. If you want to delete it, it's pretty easy. Click on this and delete deployment. Now, only deployment got deleted and I will not be able to access my application. Application is not available because I have deleted it simply. I'll try to create one more deployment using this, using the dashboard, and one by one step, I will try to expose it. So the name again, I'm giving Spring People. Namespace is default. I want one replica, but this time image I will give by myself. Images can be mdhack slash Mayank and Nginx image, and that is definitely running on 80 port number only. So what I'm doing, I'm just changing the image name because there is something different content right here. I'll create it. Definitely after that, what I have created, exposed it. So basically service got created. So here I need to go manually. Service is already created, but the problem is labels are not matching. So I'll delete this service and create service that there is a selector called HTTPD and the port number that is my application working on 80. Now you may be thinking that why I'm changing this HTTPD. So let me create it first and then I will show you why I'm using it. Whenever you create any deployment that is having a label pod selector, if this pod selector is matching to this service called Spring People, okay, example, this one, if it is matching, then only they will expose it, otherwise no. So that's why I have written it like this. And after doing that, I need to get the URL. I'll go to the routes. I'll delete the previous route, recreate a new one. The name I can give like Mayank. Nothing select service. Which service you want to expose? Example one. Target port, this one, and create. Now, as soon as you do it, you will see now my application will work. So this is my different application now. This is my user profile, Mayank Modi, DevOps trainer, Rajasthan. So this is the application that I have deployed on top of OpenShift in just less than 10 seconds, right? Means if I'm doing it manually only, I can take like, it can take like 7 to 10 seconds maximum. So this is the way that you can easily deploy your application in OpenShift cluster. So we deployed the application using the containerization image. We exposed it. We can access it, right? So even if you want to access it, I will try to copy link this address. Maybe if you are having the access of chat, maybe you'll get a link. And that link, if you click, you will get the website running. And this is accessible to complete world, not just my PC, not just you, everybody in the world who have the internet access, they can do it. And this is how we can actually deploy our application. So maybe you want to try, you can try it. But now, one more thing I'll tell you, last thing about this webinar, that authentication process. So if you want to delete your application, it's pretty easy. Like delete the route, whatever the things you created, just delete them one by one. Example one I created, I delete it. Deployment I created, I delete it. Now one more thing, last thing, that is authentication part. Right now, if you can see that I'm only logged in with OC, who am I? I'm only logged in with Cube admin user. You can actually see that, right? But I want to log in with, for example, admin user. Is there any admin user with a password called Red Hat? It is saying me login failed, that I'm not able to log. So let's try to do one thing. I'll try to choose any one name in the chat, in the attendee part, and then I will try to create that user for the OpenShift. Let's say I will take a name called, okay, so there is one Satya Chaitanya Kumar. I will try to create a user with the name of Satya. So right now, the Satya user is not available. If I log in, OC, I'm not able to write. Just a second. Why I'm unable to write there? Let me check. I will try to open the duplicate tab once. Just confirm me. Am I audible? Yeah, I think now it is working. I'm logging into it. So OC login with Satya user with a password called Red Hat. I'm unable to access it because the user is not created. Simple. So I will try to create a Satya user now. But how the user process works? First of all, I need to create a user in a file with password that I want to give. And that password, in order to allow that user and password so that OpenShift can read, we need to allow that file to readable by OpenShift. How can I create a user and password file? With definitely encryption. So there is a tool called command called htpasswd. If you run, it is running fine. It can help me to create a file with the user and the password, and that file we can give to the OpenShift so it can be helpful for us to log in. In order to create that file, there is a simple that I want to create a file. C means create a file with password encryption, and the password I will give on the terminal itself. The file name I will try to take as Spring People login. Any file name you can give, it's completely depends on us. And the username is Satya, and the password for Satya is Red Hat. So what is the meaning of these three shorthands? C means create this file. Capital B means I will try to make sure the encryption of the password. And B means I will try to give the password on the terminal itself. Before running this command, you can see there is no file with the name of Spring People login. There is no file, no such file or directory. But as soon as I create it, you will see it file came with a user called Satya and the password got encrypted. And that is basically Red Hat. Now this file, if I provide to my OpenShift, it should definitely work. And for using this file, I need to create OpenShift resource, and that is called secret because it should be secret, right? It's a credential. It's an not normal thing. It's a way of using my cluster, so it should be secure. And for doing that, we need to create a secret first. So OC, I want to create a secret with a generic, like for example, name as Mayank. From where? From a file. File type is htpasswd, and the file name is Spring People login into one different resource, that is OpenShift-config. So what I did is I simply created a secret with the name of Mayank, that Mayank is going to have the data of this particular file into this particular project I have created. Now I need to tell the OpenShift that please use Mayank secret to login to for authentication part. And for that, we need to write a code. The code is not so much necessary to learn, just to understand it's a YAML file. YAML, yet another markup language, right? So I think I already have it. Basically, I'll check it out. This is the file that I'm talking about, maybe 10 lines, where I'm telling them that there is a htpasswd file data available into the Mayank secret, right? So this Mayank secret. So what I need to do, I just need to deploy this into the OpenShift. It may take some time to redeploy the pods container, and I will be able to access using Satya user. So OC, I will want to apply this OAuth YAML file, and see, I applied OAuth YAML file. And actually, what they are doing in the background, there is a project called OpenShift-authentication. In that, they are redeploying the pods. See, right now these pods are running from 3 hours 48 minutes approximately. You know that. But now what I have applied is that please use Mayank secret. So now what OpenShift will do, they will try to use Mayank secret and they will redeploy these pods. And if these pods are going to be redeployed, that means I can log in with my Satya user. But this may take up to 5 to 7 minutes as well, right? So if I try to now see what they did, terminating, one is in creating state, right? You can see they taken the changes what I have told them. Now they are starting creating new containers, but it is in pending state. It is in terminating stage. Why it is taking time? You just need to run OCGET pods in OpenShift authentication. Still, it is in pending state. That is okay. It might take some more time, but even if you want to get more detail about it, you can get it. How? That I want to describe a pod called this one. They created container is still in pending state. Failed scheduling. Nodes are not didn't match pod node affinity selector, didn't match pod affinity rules. That is completely fine. It might take some more time to do that. Now see, both our new pod are running. One third one is in pending state. So the last part is, can I log in into Satya user? Let's try to log in with user called Satya, and the password that I have provided them is Red Hat itself. So let's try to do Red Hat as a password and see, am I able to log in successful? Why? Because now OpenShift is reading my secret that I created, and that's why I'm able to log in with Satya user. I can definitely create multiple users, and I can create thousands of users as well, and I can log in into them. And this is how the authentication in OpenShift works actually. So what we have understood in this particular webinar today is how to deploy the resource in OpenShift, how to deploy the application, then how to expose it. By exposing, we'll get a URL, and that URL you can share with anyone in the world. They can access your website. And if you talk about the OpenShift authentication part, so authentication also I have shown you, right? So in the PPT, definitely there is some prerequisite part also. You can go through after this webinar so that you will get to know more about that. But there are multiple other things you can also go ahead with after this webinar, that Red Hat provides you multiple trainings. Definitely in Spring People, we have multiple trainings related to Docker Kubernetes, OpenShift, development part of OpenShift, security part of OpenShift. There are multiple courses are available. That is basically Red Hat basics, authorization, you can say administration, developer part, security part, managing part, and multiple other courses are available. So first you can go with the containerization only, then Kubernetes, then OpenShift. Like this is a balance of it, right? So this is what all the things that I wanted to talk about in this webinar related to OpenShift. Definitely now you may ask me any questions that you guys have in your mind.
Thank you, Mike, for a wonderful session. I'm sure it was certainly a very informative session for all of you. If you guys are interested in learning more about Red Hat OpenShift, do check out our super discounted trainings that we offer at Spring People. These trainings are leveraged online from the comfort of your home and flexible as per your schedule and location. If you do not find any suitable batches for you, we would be happy to discuss and schedule private batches for you. For more information, do write to us at training@springpeople.com or call on our number displayed on the current slide. Now we will open the forum for Mayank to answer the questions that we have received during the session. So let's get our question answered. Over to you, Mayank.
Thank you. So now you guys can ask me the questions. I'm checking actually the question poll. So I got one of them. Just it's a message, no issues. I'm just waiting for the questions right now. Please ask me the questions related to this, and I'll be very happy to answer them. Okay. Uh, Somebody is asking like, what is Docker? Docker is the very basics of OpenShift, you can say. Like if Docker was not there, or maybe any other tool, then OpenShift definitely they haven't came. So Docker is a tool that can help you to run your container, first container only. OpenShift is having definitely multiple steps to do that, but Docker is the basic tool that they are using in the background to actually create the containers on your machine. So that is what Docker is. Okay, I'm waiting for more questions. Please try to give the questions on the queue. Hi, Mayank. I have a few questions about the certification. Definitely, yes. So, see, guys, whatever the things we have discussed is all about the OpenShift, right? And OpenShift is a product of definitely Red Hat. And Red Hat is very great to provide some certification exams, right? So, the exams have some codes related to OpenShift. For example, if you talk about EX180, this is an exam code. This is related to Podman plus OpenShift. Like there will be some kind of Docker as well, some kind of OpenShift as well will come in exam. That is EX180. Now, if you talk about one another exam that is called EX280, this exam is completely on administrative part. There is an exam of Red Hat called Red Hat Certified OpenShift Administrator, and this exam is that EX280. In this exam related to everything OpenShift administrator part, how can you make user group, how you can control the authentication, authorization, deploy the application, security, every single thing will come into it, right? So this is what about EX280. So I'm just checking more questions into it. Is there any hardware prerequisite for OpenShift cluster? Definitely yes. So there should be a minimum 3 master machines should be there, and minimum 2 worker machines should be there. And each of the machines should have 16 GB RAM plus 4 virtual core CPU. This is the minimum requirement. Maximum, you can get anything, right? But the minimum is 16 GB, 4 virtual core CPU plus 50 GB storage also. So this is the minimum requirement. Is OpenShift is a free tool which we can download and use? No, I mean, so right now for testing purpose, definitely it's not a tool. It's kind of a platform that you need to install. But if you talk about in your laptop, how can you practice? So there is an alternative that actually Red Hat provides called CRC, Code Ready Containers. So for this also you need at least 10 GB RAM in your laptop. You can install CRC, install it. It will run one single VM in your machine. That same act as a master machine, and the same will act as a worker also. Why to use CRC? Just for learning or testing purpose. I gave the exam, but the Red Hat did not provide the doc. I was told that they will uh, access to it. No. So if you only buy the exam, they will never going to provide any kind of documentation because the exam thing is different, the training is different. So if you buy the training, you will definitely get the document. So that's why I've shown you the slide, like what are the courses are available right here. You can join any one of them and you will definitely get the document from our site. Even if you go for exam or certification or training or any other training, you will definitely get the material for that. How to take EX280, where to prepare for that? Definitely here in the slide. You have seen this particular slide. These are the course name that you are talking about, this one. Operating a production Kubernetes cluster is EX280. Definitely you can go for the training right here with us, and it will hardly take 20 to 25 hours of training, and then you can actually go for an examination to certify into it. Maybe it is 180, 280, 288, multiple other are available in the market, right? How can we learn the basic concept of Red Hat? You will provide lecture or any other way. Red Hat is just a company. It provides you the solution like Linux, basic Linux, and many other products. So definitely you have to go for a training. There you can learn about Linux, Red Hat Linux, and many other tools of Red Hat itself that it can help you in the future for the production environment. Maybe it is OpenShift, maybe it is virtualization, maybe it is Ansible, and many more. Okay, so I think I have given a lot of questions answer. So if I try to summarize like questions answers, basically everybody is asking about the course and the certification part, right? So there are multiple courses related to OpenShift. If you talk about the courses, we have OpenShift Basics, or Administrator, Developer, Security, Managing the Microservices. These are like 4 to 5 courses are available. And before that, you need to have a prerequisite of Docker and Kubernetes also. So that also you can have. If you talk about the certification, so whatever the courses we are delivering, every course have their Red Hat certification. Not every, related to OpenShift, they have multiple certifications, like 4 to 5 certifications are available. So if you go with the training, everything will be talk about in the training about certification topics, how to use in production environment, every single thing, and then you can easily go for examination as well. So these are all the questions that I have got majorly, and this is how we can do. Okay. So this is, thank you so much for joining, and now head over to you, Satyakshi. I'm done from my end.
Thank you, Mayank, for answering all the questions, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We shall be sending out the webinar recording to all participants soon. I request you to kindly provide feedback before signing off, which will help us improve the quality of our future events. Once again, thank you to all who joined us today. Signing off on behalf of Team Spring People, hope to see you again for our next expert webinar. Bye all.